and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. Join us for interviews, updates and chat with artists, influencers and those that manufacture the gear that we love. Hello and welcome to 9 to 42, which is the podcast from the guys at the Guitar Show UK. And I might be sounding slightly gruffer than normal because I'm full of cold. And my good friend Jason Hunt is sounding equally gruffer than normal because you were out warbling last night, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I played a gig at Hare and Hounds in Birmingham. It was really good, really good. The audience were lovely. We supported Rebecca Downs, who's a... I hate to say this because she kind of gets labelled as a blues singer, but it's not just blues. She's just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. We'll have to get her on the podcast.
You do sound just that little bit. You came on with kind of this kind of thick kind of, you know, would today be a good Barry White day?
Yeah, I can feel my voice vibrating in my chest, and that's because I have zero technique when it comes to singing.
Yes. Do you know what? I've never heard you sing live.
It's full of passion. But if I ever had to go on like a month-long tour, I reckon about halfway through my voice would give out, and that'd be it.
Right, so if you're going to go and see Jace, folks, make sure he's either not played a week before or a week after, or if it's a long tour, go at the beginning. Even if it means going to Aberystwyth, go at the beginning. Don't hang on for the London date at the end. It's not going to be worth it.
Always Llandudno, which brings us to our guest, really, doesn't it?
It does.
Because 2 weeks ago, we were the support act for Craig Joyner and Romeo's daughter in Llandudno.
And there we have it. And do you know what, Jace? We'd agreed we were going to say Craig Joyner, singer-songwriter.
Oh, sorry.
Do you know, let's throw that in as well. So Craig, tourer of Llandudno, member of Romeo's daughter, singer-songwriter, welcome, how are you?
Thank you very much, fellas. Lovely to be here and chat.
I just need to describe your backdrop because you're in... Is that an upstairs room or a downstairs room?
Downstairs, converted garage.
I'm in a converted garage as well, actually.
Yeah.
I thought it was downstairs. Don't ask me why. I just assumed it was downstairs. I've no idea. I just did it. In my head, I was like, oh, that's a downstairs room. That is a little bit of... That is proper packed, isn't it, with gear?
It is at the moment, yeah. It's one of those things where it becomes a bit of a... We had a couple of gigs this week and it becomes a bit of a dumping ground. So you put all the gears in the room. It's completely and utterly unpacked and all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, I've got everything in here that's guitar related.
But what's really impressive... in certainly my top right corner, there looks like it's either a silver or a platinum disc framed on the wall.
Do you know what? I've blown my own trumpet for 2 seconds. I've got two of those. One side is I think it's quadruple platinum for Steps, and the other side is double platinum for Heart.
Amazing.
Blue, but there you go.
So hang on, you can't leave that hanging. So expand on that.
Well, when Romeo's daughter brought their first album out, because of the influence of Mutt, a lot of people were really interested as to what he was doing. So when Romeo's daughter came out, a lot of people, and when I say people, I mean musicians, people in the business, they wanted to hear what was going on. And again, I'd written the song Wild Child with Mutt, and because of Mutt's influence, Heart got hold of it and they wanted to use it, and they went on it. They didn't actually use it as a single, but it got to number 2 in the Billboard playlist chart, and they were thinking about releasing it as a single, but because it had so much play, they thought that they might have shot their bolt with it, so they chose something else as a second single, but it got a lot of play on the radio, and it was great to have that. And with regards to the other one, that was a song called the Heart one was called Wild Child, and the Steps one was called Stay With Me Tonight. And when I first wrote that, I wrote it as a full-on ballad, and it was very much inspired by Stay With Me Till Dawn, Judy Zook.
Yeah.
I had such a crush on her when I was younger, and that song was just fantastic. And I wrote this song pretty much on the back of that. And as I say, it was a ballad to start with. And when we put it on the album, Mutt sort of double timed it, so it felt like it was a lot quicker, even though it was the same kind of tempo. It was just doubled up. And when we finished the album, a couple of months later, I went over and I saw him. And I was doing a session for him. He said, "You know that Stay With Me Tonight?" He said, we should have done that how you'd written it. It should have been a ballad." He said, "What we should do is re-record it," and then he said, "We'll try and get a cover on it." And Steps took it.
I think we should go back to the beginning of that. Your first album is produced by Mutt Lange.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, how does that happen? I mean, I'm assuming. So when was the first album? Mid-80s.
80. We started the album in 87.
87. So I mean, this is a guy that has done Back in Black. He's done Def Leppard. I mean, he's riding about as high as he can possibly get, certainly in the rock world. How does Romeo Daughter end up with Mutt Lange behind the desk, really?
It's quite a weird story because it actually starts with my mum. Uh, but you know that saying, 6 degrees of separation. And my mum answered an ad in the Watford Observer that said, "Manager looking to manage bands." And we met up with this fella, Alan Goon. Never forget this fella. Didn't do a single thing other than he said, "Maybe you should have a girl as a front, your front person in the band. Maybe that should be a female singer." So we auditioned a few singers, and we came up with this girl Lucinda, who used to be in what was Kenny Everett's dance group? Was it Legs and Co?
Yeah.
In his show, he had that dance band,
Yeah.
like people, but they were called not Legs and Co. It was, oh God, I can't remember what they were called now. But he had a very similar thing to Pan's People. Anyway, Lucinda was a dancer in that. She, bless her, she was the loveliest girl. She couldn't sing very well, but she was great, and she looked fantastic, and she was in the band, and we really made it try to work, And she knew this other fella called Dave, so that's 3, so that's 4. Sorry. So my mum, Alan Goon, Lucinda, Dave, and Dave knew Olga Lang, and she was looking to manage a band. And at the time, Alan Goon had gone; he'd long gone. So we had Olga Lang, and then you got Mutt Lange. And the first demos we did with Romeo's Daughter were with John Parr, who at the time had Sin Almost Fire. He'd had that out probably about, I don't know, 8 months, something like that. And from that, Olga got in contact with Mutt, and Mutt agreed to sort of polish the demos up and see where we stood with those. And then we changed a few things. He got into it, and before we know where we are, he produced our first album.
That is really that. I mean, it is astonishing. That.
Oh, it was outrageous. I mean, 1 minute we're playing the Horn of Plenty in St Albans, as a really like young, don't wet behind the ears, haven't got a clue what we're doing band, to working in this studio in the middle of a valley that he owns in Guildford, in front of a 72 channel desk, working with the best in the world. And I have to say, it was a learning curve for me that's stood with me until now. All the things that he used to, the processes he used to go through, the way he used to record, the way he used to teach you to record, the way he used to teach you how to sing, and how to perform and play and what to look for and all these different bits and pieces. It's never left me. It was fantastic to work with. Said he was really hard work, and they were really, a lot of people said, he's a real, he drive me nuts, because he's so finicky and all this kind of stuff. But I actually loved it, and he had a great way of communicating with people. You know what it's like with musicians in studios trying to get your ideas across. He was fantastic. He could just do something and say something, and you think, oh, okay, that's what it is. You get it. And I think that's what made him so great, other than the fact that he was an incredible songwriter and very talented at what he did.
Was the whole band sort of like in a constant like pinch me, this isn't real sort of like mindset,
Yeah, we used to go over to his place, and he'd sort of say, "I'll come over for the weekend," and we were doing I think at the time we were doing Wild Child, and there was that massive storm in '87. Do you remember that?
Yes.
At the beginning of Wild Child, I'll never forget it. He started it, and this massive clap of thunder, electrical bolt came, and it pretty much hit the house, and it stopped and turned the electrics off. So for a long, long time, at the beginning of Wild Child, it went because it was an electrical current that had come from the storm outside. And he would just say, "I'll stay for the weekend," and then 2 weeks later, we'd still be there, and we'd still be working on them. And it was really quick, you know. I think in a couple of 3 months, we had the album finished and done, and any finishing touches, we did that at Battery Studios in Willesden, and John Parr also was pretty much co-producer of that as well. And he was there as well. So it was, a definite pinch me moment.
I'm assuming the album is finished. Are you signed at this point, or
Yeah, it was signed to Giant.
Yeah, and then was it the first single becomes a hit in the States or something?
The first single got to about 40 in the Billboard chart. So it wasn't what you would call a hit, but it was a good start. It was a real good start. We got a lot of play in America, no two ways about it. We went over there, we did a promotional tour, and we never actually played in America, but we did a lot of promotional stuff, and we did videos in America. And it sounds really posh, but cost a lot. But you know, it was an incredible experience, no two ways about it.
So I watched some of those videos yesterday, and there was one video where you're in like a desert, which I'm assuming was in America somewhere. And you predate Slash soloing in a desert by about 3-4 years. And I was like, that's incredible. And I was telling my mate last night when we were doing the gig, and he was like, when I met you, if I'd said I'd filmed a video of me soloing in the desert, you'd just think I was the coolest person in the world, wouldn't you? And I was like, to be fair, fucking yes.
Do you know what? I did not know that. I didn't. He probably looked at that, didn't he? And he got the idea for it.
Absolutely. November Rain is just a complete rip-off. I mean, to be fair, he got a small church in the background. You just got desert.
Maybe we could go back to that video and actually Photoshop a church in now. And then really make it seem like that he'd ripped you off. Start a whole conspiracy theory at this point in time.
Definitely. Yeah, that's the way to go. I like that.
Do you ever go back and sort of like, watch those videos?
Not very much, no. No, is the answer to that. Every now and then, I suppose, maybe a picture of a still of it comes up on Facebook or on the internet or something like that, and you look at it and you think, crikey, it seems another life.
I mean, given that I've actually played 2 gigs supporting you, so one with Romeo's daughter and one with Rhino, and it's like, I didn't recognise the cowboy boot wearing, leaping around in the videos. I was like, is that crazy?
No. Mad. That time's change.
It's certainly not the vibe you're putting over this morning, Craig.
No. Well, again, a bit more follically challenged these days.
Your cowboy boots must be the other side of that door. That's all I can think.
Oh, yeah.
You've taken them off before you've come into you.
I like to think I'm holding my end up by having, guitars and on display and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think having quadruple platinum discs kind of just whatever, mate.
Yeah. That seems to be the bit that's missing from my room. I don't know about yours, Jace.
Yeah. I mean, I can probably paint a disc and put it up on the wall, but that's as close as I'm going to get.
Oh, brilliant!
I've got vinyl produced by Mutt Lange. I've not got a piece of vinyl that I recorded that had Mutt Lange's involvement in it.
No. Nor steps, to be fair.
I'm actually quite jealous of that as well, to be honest.
Well, I mean, if there's one way of guaranteeing some kind of income, is getting the band like Steps to cover it. You know.
On the subject of that, on the subject of things that you've written, because your fingers are all over lots of stuff in quite strange places, aren't they?
Yeah. When we were signed to Jive, they had a couple of subsidiary labels. One was called Chapel, and the other one was Bruton. And I met a fella there called Jez Paul, and while we were finishing, or not finishing, while we were writing that was the second album actually, but we were doing stuff at Battery Studios, which is Jive were a product of Zomba Publishing, and it was Zomba House in Willesden, and Battery Studios was the place that they recorded and did everything. And I think they had 5 studios. There was 4 one side of the road and 1 on the other side. These two different labels are library for library music. So basically, all the incidental music you hear on telly, documentaries, series, programs, films. Not so much films, even though I've got some involved in films. But a lot of it was just like for the BBC at the time. Sky and all that kind of stuff. And he said you should do an album, and I said, well, I'm going to finish off with the Romeos, and I'd love to do one. And I did my first one in '96, and yeah, it's amazing where all of a sudden you hear your music being played on all kinds of different things, and it was really good because when Romeos finished for the first time, I thought to be gone into it, I thought, oh, crap, what am I going to do now? How am I going to make this work? And I threw a few things at the wall, and but this particular avenue took off, and it was fantastic. It enabled you to carry on writing. The performing side of things was it came a couple of years later when I started doing did a covers band with a couple of mates of mine from the band, and but this kept you in the studio. It kept you writing, kept you recording, it kept you involved in the studio environment, and working with other people. I worked with some great bass players, some great drummers, some string quartets, and it was great. It really was. And as I say, consequently, you get played in a lot of different and unusual places.
I mean, I'm looking at the list. Friends, like the biggest TV show in the world ever. Cold Feet, which was an absolute classic. The theme to Would I Lie to You, which is incredible, and the European Golf. I'm not sure where that fits, but
Oh, European Golf. Well, it was whenever I play golf myself, or used to play golf a shed load. But when you'd ever watch the European Tour, they go onto the scoreboard, and when they go onto the scoreboard, there's music in the background playing, and that was my music for about 3 years, and I was chuffed to pieces with that. I saw it pop up all over the place. There was a lot was with Oprah and Geraldo and all those hosts, on TV, Ricky Lake, those sort of things. It'd be played on those all the time, and yeah, it'd be great. You just quite this would never happen. How did this happen? Yeah, it was good. As I say, it keeps you recording, keeps your brain in writing mode, and it was good.
Is that a nice steady sort of income? Is that income that actually is, is it kind of this Spotify thing of, oh, it's pence, it's just not worth talking about, or is it actually something that?
Oh yeah, no, it's proper.
It's proper income.
It's proper income, yeah. Yeah, there's at the time. So I started writing in '96. So personally, the glory days for writing that kind of stuff were anything from probably from the '70s, '80s, all the way through to about 2010, something like that. And it was fantastic. A lot of things have happened since then. Like Sky have gone off; they've sort of split and decided they're going to have their own musical library. So they've got their own writers that they used. And there were other companies, not major amounts of companies, but at the time, Zomba was a really big force in that. And yeah, it was lucrative, no two ways about it. I mean, when you think that there's certain... at the time when I joined, they had all this vinyl from the 70s and earlier, actually. All this stuff that they were converting to digital, because digital had just come on, so they had the digital tape, they had the DATs, and all that kind of stuff, and they were converting all this vinyl. And one of these vinyl albums was by this fella, and he was basically classical. But on there with all these, you listen to him, you think, God, that's the theme for, this sporting program or that sporting program. And there was one particular piece of music that he had, and it was about 15 minutes long. And there was a section in the middle of this thing, and the story was told that everyone was saying that this bit is no good. You should get rid of it. And he was adamant, and he said, "Nah, leave it in. Honestly, it'll get used. It's not a problem. I've been doing this long enough. It will get used." But it became news at 10. I mean, and he earned an absolute fortune from it, an absolute fortune. Da 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 da, and it was the middle to this classical piece, and they literally just took it out and made it news at 10.
So do you have to write differently? I mean, you write for Romeo's Daughter. You write for your solo stuff, which we'll come on to in a bit. Are there songs that you kind of go, oh, that's not for this, that's for that? Or do you just kind of write when you need to?
Well, they'll give you a brief. Generally, what happens with libraries, they'll give you a brief. So I'm a guitar player, so they'll definitely come to me for guitar-related stuff. So that can mean anything from very, very minimalistic single acoustic parts that you would play that you would probably hear over things like Country File and programs like that, or Repair Shop and stuff like that, where it's just one guitar on its own, or maybe another guitar, or maybe another instrument, all the way through to, kind of almost Slipknot. So there's anything guitar related. The only thing I sort of stayed clear of was jazz, anything that sort of way. So it would be folk acoustic, country acoustic, bluegrass acoustic. Then you go on to indie pop, indie rock. Anything like that. Anything guitar related like that. That would be where I would sit.
Not everybody listens to all those different kinds of music. So if somebody came to you and said, I need a bluegrass track, and you don't like bluegrass, or you're not, you don't know much about bluegrass, do you have to do a ton of research, or are you across all kind of guitar music apart from jazz?
No, to be honest with you, generally the people that run these particular labels, like for instance Jez in this situation, he would have at the time I think there was about sort of 70 to 75 writers. So in that 75 there would be a group of guitarists who would specialize in different areas.
Right.
So they would say, well, there was another mate of mine, Sean, they would say, Sean does this kind of music really well. So they would go to him for that. There's another guitar player called John Paracelli. Fantastic jazz player. I mean, he really is, and very much, they call it, there's the jazz and there's the fusion jazz and all that kind of thing. He would sort of go with that kind of thing, and in all kinds of areas of music, but we all had different labels, if you like. So I would be the rock acoustic, indie acoustic, folk acoustic, that kind of stuff. So anything related to that, that's what I would do. And anything else that was, say, jazz, they put it out to somebody else.
I mean, I think from listening to your acoustic tracks that I have, and the track that I got sent off the new album, and then seeing you on stage with Rhino, and then seeing you on stage with Romeo's Daughter, you're kind of like different every time I see you. I mean, I was, because like the first time we shared the stage was in November at the Musician in Leicester, and I think you were playing a junior into a plexi, the Cornell plexi that you got, and it was like raw, like as Rhino's music is, right? It's like raw rock and roll, isn't it? And then I saw you say 2 weeks ago in Llandudno, and were you playing a Sir, I think. And it was much smoother, and then of course, I've seen the video for the acoustic thing. You seem to cover quite a few bases. Are you very good at kind of like adapting to what's needed?
I think within what I do, I'm competent in doing that. I've always played acoustic, so right from day one, I started with fingerstyle guitar. That's how I started playing, and rock came very much at my later teens. You know, when I caught a glimpse of Rush doing Tom Sawyer on Top of the Pops, and that was that. But yeah, I mean, I've always done acoustic, and I've always, I say later on, got into the rock stuff. So I think when you just again, when it comes back, when we were working with Mutt, you sort of try all kinds of different things, and it was it's what I've always done, and I've never really thought about it that much. You know, I just sort of thought, okay, this needs to be that.
Mm.
And as far as I'm concerned, certainly from when I said to you when Romeo's Daughter finished in about 1994, I think it was, I just thought, what the hell am I going to do? And I want to stay in music, but how am I going to do that? And I thought, well, I just got to chuck as much as I can at the wall, and that's what I started to do really. And but I've always played those particular types of music, and I've always been okay with that, and so I'm always happy, you know, in that sort of field, if you like. As I
Mm.
said, jazz really isn't my thing. I've never really sort of done that. And we talked about bluegrass earlier, which again is a little bit left of where I am, but the folky acoustic style and strumming, if you like, lead to a degree, and rhythm and writing. I consider myself first and foremost a writer because I don't know about yourself. Do either of you write?
Yeah, I do.
So you know what when you say to yourself, do you know, I'm going to practice because I'm not playing so great at the moment, so I'm going to practice. 5 minutes into practice, you're writing.
Yeah, I'm terrible at practice, awful, because I always end up playing a song or trying to figure out a new song, sort of thing. And then I suppose that's my practice. My practice is playing songs rather than up and down the fretboard, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think when it comes to guitar, I mean, I love playing guitar. Love it, absolutely do. And I think I'm competent at it. But I'm certainly no Joe Satriani or anything like that. When you listen to these fellas play, you just think, my God, you're from a different planet. They're just playing so brilliantly and incredibly. But then you get somebody else like uh, Robbie McIntosh, who plays the way he plays, which, I'm sure he would say, I'm maybe not the best lead player in the world, but what a sound, that fella makes, you listen to his playing in the Pretenders, and I've seen him play with John Mayer, a lot of slide and all that kind of stuff. And it's fantastic. And there's all different angles to it, but I definitely think that when it comes to practice, you've got to limber up a little bit, but then I get an idea and I'm off.
So how did you end up playing with Rhino?
Now, I've got a mate of mine, Jim, who plays for a band called FM,
Oh, Jim Kirkpatrick.
Jim Kirkpatrick, and he said to me, he said, I've got some gigs with FM coming up, and I'm supposed to be doing some gigs with Rhino. Um, if I had a word with Rhino, how do you fancy sort of sitting in for me for a little bit? And I said, yeah, definitely. And I went and saw him play at Brixton, not Brixton, sorry, Shepherd's Bush. Uh, saw them play there, and I thought, bloody hell, I really enjoyed watching them play, and I thought they sounded fantastic, and I thought they blew the headline away. I thought their sound was incredible. Um, so yeah, I met Rhino that night, and we got together, and I just started playing with him really, and we did these gigs, and yeah, it was great. It was cracking. That's how I
Yeah.
kind of came across him.
And you're on the Rhino's new album as well, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was gracious enough to let me to play. He called me up and he said, and it was a double whammy for me because we worked at this great studio in Hampton, and the engineer there was fantastic. But Mike Paxman was producing his album, and Mike Paxman is the guy that was with Judy Zook all the years. He wrote "Stay with Me Till Dawn." Um, he'd done like all the albums with Judy Zook and played in her band forever. And to actually work with Rhino and with Mike Paxman, because Mike and Rhino have known each other for years, because Rhino was in Judy Zook's band for the first 7 years, I think.
Mm.
And they're best mates, absolutely best mates, signed, sealed, and have been for years. Uh, And yeah, I got to work with Mike Paxman, which was just fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
It's
And yeah,
another one of those 6 steps removed, isn't it?
it was an absolute privilege though working with him because again, his way of working was fantastic, as was Rhino's. Both great fellas. Really really good to work with.
And so I suppose we should talk about the new album, which I have here. So very different from the two that we've been talking about, Rhino and Romeo's Daughter. An album of, do we call it folk music?
Yeah,
I did read that you started in folk clubs. Is that correct?
yeah, I did. Yeah, first guitar I got was an acoustic guitar. Um, I wanted to play guitar ever since I knew what one was. Um, and I did my first gig when I was 15, which was really a support to, I can't remember the guy's name, and he was brilliant. He was really funny, this fella. And he was Max Boyce's roadie. Do you remember Max Boyce?
I do remember well. Yes.
Roadie. And he was hilarious, this fella. But I did my first gig. It was the Hemel Cellar Folk Club, which is in the old town hall in Old Hemel. And anybody that doesn't know what Old Hemel looks like, or the Old Hemel Town Hall, if you watch that program with Ricky Gervais, Afterlife, whenever they pan down over a car park, that's filmed from the Watford Town, the old Watford Town Hall in Old Hemel.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you did your first folk gig. I'm assuming you were still at school at this point.
Yeah, I don't even know if my voice had broke.
Uh, and you're singing as well.
Yeah, singing and playing guitar, which is again something that I've always done, so I've always felt very comfortable doing it.
So are you playing covers or are you playing originals?
Covers at that point.
At what age did you join Romeo's Daughter?
Well, Romeo's Daughter, I had a band early on from school, which then sort of morphed into what became the early part of Romeo's Daughter. And you know what it's like, people who are really into the idea stick around, and the other ones that don't just fall by the way. And I was kind of, in the end, it was myself and Tone, the keyboard player, and then we had the band, but as soon as we got management and the other people in the band realised that there was a chance that this could possibly go on, they made that sort of decision as to whether they thought that they would want to do that or not. And so in the end, it was just myself and Tone that was left. And then we auditioned singers, and Lee came in.
Are you still doing the folk clubs at the same time?
No, that kind of stopped really. As I say, I think I was about 17, 18. And as I say, I saw watched Tom Sawyer on Top of the Pops, and I saw Alex Lifeson playing. I thought, flipping it, that's something else.
See, the thing I can't believe about that statement is that Rush were on Top of the Pops.
Yeah, it was Tom Sawyer on there, and they were doing. It was from the Exit Stage Left album, and it was live. And
I know very little about Rush, but I just seem to remember that their songs are quite long, so it could possibly have been the entire Top of Pops episode that week.
He was playing. I mean, you'll appreciate this because he was playing a white 5.
Yeah,
the old 335, and God, it sounded wonderful because you have that very guitar, don't you?
I have the drab olive, I think the colour is officially called, 355. Yeah, it's just wonderful guitar. It's wonderful.
That's great. Every time I've heard it, it sounds wonderful.
I picked it up so cheap as well because it had a neck break, and as long as it's been repaired properly, it's absolutely fine. But I don't think anybody wanted to buy it.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? You get a great guitar like that because it's got some sort of a nick on it, or something's wrong, and you think, well, it's not affecting it in any way whatsoever. It's just great, and there it is in your hand.
Yeah, I did a deal in a Crew Services car park.
Right, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really funny. The guy turned up, and he got his wife and his kid. They were, I can't remember where they lived, but actually, I was on my way back from playing in Llandudno, and he said that he was travelling down the M6, and I was like, well, so am I, so we'll just meet at Crew Services. And his wife just did that kind of like, off you go and do your deal. We'll go and get a burger. So I was just stood outside in Crewe car park, sort of like strumming this guitar, going, "Yeah, it's all right, mate. Yeah."
Yeah. It's brilliant.
I'd kind of done that. I must take like a battery powered amp so I can actually see if it works. But I completely forgot and just. But actually, when I got it at home and plugged it in, it just sounded glorious. So I love by bodies or semi hollows.
How beautiful, don't they?
Yeah, and I think because I'm quite tall, actually I need a bigger guitar because I loved your Junior and the sound of the Junior, and I used to have one, but it looks like a little children's toy on me,
Right.
and it was like I just look like a dick. So I need a bigger guitar to sort of like offset it. Hides my belly as well, so.
I'm the opposite way, you see, because I'm quite short. So, a Junior or a 335 on me would look massive. Huge.
Well, I've got a white Falcon, and they're the biggest guitars known to man. And like Malcolm Young used to play one. It was like, geez, it's massive on me. I mean, God knows what it was like on Malcolm because he was only about 5'2". I went to the Kerrang Awards once, and Angus walked past me whilst I was sat at the table, and I was still taller than Angus. Sat down. So yeah, they're very small. So let's talk about the new album. Tell us, about recording of it, why recording it, and what are the plans?
Well, I've got a couple of albums, acoustic albums at the moment. A lot of it came from because I was doing the library stuff. A lot of it came from I'd come up with an idea, and I'd think, well, I won't put that into library because it sounds like it could be a song, and I'd just work on it as a song, and I got a few together, and I thought, well, I'll put these on a record because I'd never done anything like that, and I wasn't going to start doing anything solo related that would compromise Romeo's Daughter because I love playing in Romeo's Daughter, and I wouldn't want to think that that I was doing something that was similar to that, and because I just couldn't really see the point. And I thought I've always loved this style of guitar, so I'll stick with that, and that's what I did. I released it in 2019 because I was going to release it in 18, but I got a little bit ill, and then in 2019 I released that, but then COVID kicked in, so that kind of put paid to that. And then again did the same thing. I had quite a lot of songs together, and thought, well, I got the other one out, and that was, I was out doing the clubs and bits and pieces, and it was doing okay. And I released this new one. Came pretty much in the same sort of way, just got a few ideas together and just put them down.
Amazing. So, are you going out to tour it, or?
I've got I've got a load of gigs that I'm doing, but they are. I wouldn't say it's a tour in the sense that it's a 3-on, 1-off thing. It's just gigs. I'm just doing them, and as they come in, I book them as they come in, and just keep going. Really, just keep playing and promoting as much as I can.
I was telling Mike, I went a couple of episodes ago on the podcast. We had a guy called Blair Dunlop, who's in the folk world.
Yeah.
I think his dad. I guess his dad was in Fairport. His dad was in Fairport a while ago, so it's definitely in that folk world. And he played at the guitar show in March.
Yeah.
And he was playing in Birmingham, so I got an invite to go along and watch him. He played this really cool little folk club that I had no idea existed.
Yeah.
I think it's called the Kitchen Garden Cafe.
Okay.
So you should definitely check that out. It was the audience was like, they did just do like folk gigs really, but it's in like this giant conservatory on the back of this pub cafe type thing. And it's just really quirky, and it's really, really nice, and the audience were fantastic. So you should definitely check that out.
Yeah, I will. The Kitchen Garden
Cafe. Yeah, it's in King's Heath.
Okay. The kitchen. I'm going to write that down.
Craig, I've just been looking down the list of gigs that you're doing,
Yeah.
and you're playing at a place called Cubley Hall.
Yes.
Cubley Hall used to be my local.
Oh, did
Because it says it's Cubley Hall, Sheffield, which you would probably put if you actually were in Penistone, because nobody really knows where Penistone is, but everybody knows where Sheffield is. But it's actually on the edge of Penistone, and it was literally a minute away from where I used to live.
Well done.
So I'll have a wander down to that one. I'm 15, 20 minutes away now, but fantastic venue.
That gig I'm playing with a lady called Alex Hart,
Right.
and she's a great singer-songwriter. We're doing a double header, if you like, and she plays with Seth Lakeman a lot. And,
Right, wow.
So she goes out on tour with him, and she does really well. She does a lot of gigs with different people, and she's got her own thing going, and that's what we're going to be doing. We've actually got about 3 or 4 gigs in a row. We met last year, and we did a couple of gigs together, and we said we should try and do some double headers, and that's what was organised. So doing a few there in Cubley Hall as well.
All right, so I suppose we should say, where can we find out all this info?
It's all on my website, which is craigjoynermusic.com, and I've got access to like the usual socials on there, and Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And there's a gig list on there, so you can see where I'm playing and what I'm doing, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, plans for more albums?
Definitely. I've already got a load of songs that I'm planning to do to make another album. As I say, I'm just in the throes right at the beginning of this one. So we did the first video for it, and I think the first single is "The Wedding Day of Eliza May," and it's just again, it was one of those things where I got a riff which actually was quite similar to. Actually, if I think about it, it's quite similar to like a Romeo's riff in the sense that it's kind of got like hammer-ons and pull-offs and all that kind of stuff. But these songs they just sort of turn up because a lot of the times you're working, you're coming up with a load of things. I mean, I don't know about you, Jason and Anthony. I'm not sure about you, but when I get home from a gig, first thing I do is pick the guitar up and I'll put the kettle on, have a cup of tea, and pick the guitar up and start working. Or not even working, just playing, just having a laugh. A lot of songs come up at that sort of time.
I ended up playing a bit after the gig when everybody had gone because we were just, like you're just hanging around at the venue, aren't you, waiting for everybody to disappear so you can start packing up properly. But I got home last night at, I don't know, 12:15, something like that, but absolutely wide awake, and sort of like I say, put the kettle on, I had a bit of toast because I can't eat before gigs. And then that there was nowhere to eat after we'd finished sort of thing. So I was absolutely bloody starving. So I ended up crawling into bed about an hour later sort of thing. It hurt this morning when the alarm went off at 6:30.
Well, that's it. I've done that so many times when you get back from a gig, I say 1 or 2, and you're buzzing.
Mm.
Put the gear on and just see what comes out. It's a bit like your brain's in a different mode.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like when I wake up in the morning. I'm not the best in the world in the morning, but sometimes when I'm in writing mode, for me the best thing is to just get the phone, stick it on the table, and the first thing that you play, it might just be G, C, and D, and you can come up with melodies. First thing before your brain's engaged, and it's very weird process because you can be playing an idea and you think, oh, that sounds good, I really like that, and within 5 minutes you think, oh no, it's no good, it's not that, I'll turn it off. And then a day or so later you come back to it and you realise that the G, C and D that you played for the first 30 seconds with the melody on the top that you'd chosen at that particular time was totally different to the G, C and the D and the melody that you were singing 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
So that first 30 seconds was actually the brain hadn't engaged and you were there.
I'm going to try that.
And it's, as I say, the reason you got bored was because you'd actually started to revert to where your brain normally is comfortable and where it normally sits. And for me, it's that first little ditty. The minute you pick up a guitar that you've never played before, you haven't played for a long, long time, you play something instantly on it, and you think, "Wow, I like that," and you record it. And as I say, you put it away, and you realise that you've actually got something.
I can add into that because not because of me, but as regular listeners know, I also do a podcast with Marillion's lead singer, and Marillion writes by jamming. So they go into the studio, they hit record, the producer hits record, and they jam for 15 minutes, half an hour at every session, and then he goes back and he looks through the jams, and they then work on the bits that they like, and they work them up. But they've always said that the good stuff happens in the first 5 minutes of any session. And nothing good invariably happens after that first 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
So you collect the band together, you collect all 5 of them together on a daily basis when they're writing, essentially for 5 minutes.
Wow.
That's exactly. I completely agree with that, because your brain hasn't engaged. It just hasn't started thinking about what you would normally do and what you would normally play. It's like when you go and sit in a guitar shop, you pick a guitar off the wall. You're so self-conscious. You probably play the same licks that you would play all the time. And I think that's where your brain reverts back to when you're not even consciously songwriting, but when you're just having a little faff and you think, oh, that's a nice little idea. I quite like that, And the amount of times I've done that, and sometimes I start in the morning and I just think, I really like that idea, and you push yourself. So I don't say go into another verse. So if I was to do an intro into a verse, into a chorus, come out of that chorus and go straight into what I think might be a middle eight, and just take it the first place that it comes to, and not worry about it. Just bang, straight away, and choose something completely random, like a chord that you would never go to, and just see where it might be totally wrong, but it might work with the melody that you do at that particular time. And I've got a load of stuff from that way of working. It's always an incredible thing when songs come along. You just got to be available to grab them. It's kind of nothing to do with you. They're almost on like a treadmill that are going around the ether, and you just got to be available to pick them up, and
It's a bit like Yo Sushi.
yeah.
Yo Sushi for songs.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a verse. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, as I discovered when I went to Yo Sushi, someone took our food because they thought it was them. So you could end up with someone else's song.
You could quite easily, yeah.
Well, look at Oasis. They ended up with most of the Beatles back catalogue.
That's not fair. They also had some of Slade's and T-Rex's back catalogue too.
They must have gone to a very big Yo Sushi.
But it is a very similar thing. In fact, I think Gibson started. They've got a new shop
Yes.
where they put the conveyor belt. They must have got that from. I saw a documentary on Mike Campbell. He had a similar kind of thing, didn't he? He had them all hanging up.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
I think Mike Campbell might possibly be my favourite guitarist of all time.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He just plays for the song, It's just remarkable. In fact, his new album's due out next month, I think.
Did you ever see that documentary he did about the writing of Boys of Summer?
Yes.
I had no idea that the Boys of Summer came from Mike Campbell. I had no idea.
Yeah, because Tom Petty didn't want it, did he?
No.
I
I love Petty, but flipping heck, come on. It's probably one of the best songs of all time.
and wasn't it a Lynn drum that they couldn't replicate or something? I seem to remember.
Yeah, definitely. They thought they'd lost all the program from the Lindrum, didn't they? They I don't know how they managed to get round it. But there's actually a couple of good things that have come from the Lindrum. Well, one was that, and the other one. Do you remember that band, the Blue Nile? Do you remember them?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm a big Blue Nile fan.
Yeah. Again, another band that was so like critically acclaimed. I saw them at what was the name of the place at the end of Oxford Street? what was that venue at the end? It was facing you that they had We Will Rock You there. It's the one facing you as you walk down.
As you walk down. It's on the corner of that and Tottenham Court Road, isn't it?
That's it, yeah. And we saw the Blue Nile there. And the audience was made up of just the who's who of rock, and who's who of pop. We had 10cc there, Phil Collins, all these real high-profile people come to watch this band play, and they had barely an hour's material.
Yeah.
Barely an hour, and I think they might have repeated one song at the end, Anyway.
Jace, if you've never heard the Blue Nile, listen to the Blue Nile. Really, really unbelievable. His voice is just incredible.
It's cracking, isn't it?
Absolutely off the charts good.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, for everybody, there's a recommendation for today. If you've never checked out the Blue Nile, check out the Blue Nile.
All right, I shall do that post-podcast.
Post-podcast. Well, Craig, thank you very, very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting us into your converted garage.
Yeah, that's all right. No worries at all.
Made a cracking job of it, mate. Radiator looks fab.
Thank you. It's way too big. They said, "Oh, yeah, mate, you want one of them. You want a 95 ZP converter radiator in there, you know what I mean?" But of course, turn it on and it's flipping sweltering. So
at least it'll be warm in the winter. And I look forward to hooking up with you at Cubley Hall. That'll be quite surreal.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. If you've enjoyed the show, then please remember to hit the subscribe button and share with other like-minded souls. For more information about 9 to 42, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at the Guitar Show UK. This has been an A Short Stories production.